tell you about the Constitution and the Bill of Rights today. Do you know what those are? Aren't you excited? Yeah, me too. First off, we're going to talk about the Constitution. And the first part of the Constitution is the preamble. And the preamble lists the reasons for the original 13 colonies of the United States to separate from their mother country, and they wanted to become their own independent nation. First, I'm going to read the actual preamble for you, and then I'll break it down and explain it to you. What the preamble says is, "We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our prosperity, to ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America." And what this actually means, it means we the people of the United States, in order to form a perfect union, make a good government and laws, peace in our homes, national security, healthy communities, freedom, family, friends, and give authority to the supreme law of land for the United States of America. What the Constitution basically is our plan for the government. It talks about the three main parts of the government: the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. It also talks about the separate powers of the federal and the state government and how to change the Constitution. The first article of the Constitution is about the legislative branch, and it says that the U.S. Congress makes the laws for the United States, and the Congress has two parts called houses. One is the House of Representatives, and the other is the Senate. The second article of the Constitution is about the executive branch, which talks about the president, the vice president, the cabinet, and the department under the cabinet security, and how they carry out laws made by Congress. The third article of the Constitution talks about the judicial branch. Cannot pronounce that word. And it talks about the Supreme Court decides the court cases according to the U.S. Constitution. The courts in the Supreme Court decide criminal and civil court cases according to the correct federal, state, and local laws. Article 4 of the Constitution states the powers. States have the power to make and carry out their own laws. States' laws are related to the people and the problems in the area, and the states respect the other states' laws, and they talk about regional and national problems throughout the U.S. The fifth article of the Constitution talks about the amendments of the Bill of Rights. It says that the Constitution can be changed and new amendments can be added to the U.S. Constitution with the approval of the 2/3 vote in each of the Congress, so 67 to 281, and 3/4 vote by the states, which is 38 to 281. The sixth article of the Constitution talks about the federal powers, and it says that the Constitution and the federal laws are higher than state and local laws, so the U.S.'s laws are more important than laws made by the state of Minnesota or made by the city of Becker, and all laws must agree with the U.S. Constitution. Article 7 of the Constitution talks about the ratification of the Constitution. The article was presented to George Washington and the men at the Constitutional Convention on September 17, 1787. Representatives from 12 of the original 13 colonies actually signed the Constitution, which therefore passed it. And from September 1787 and through July 1788, the states met and talked about the Constitution and finally voted to approve the Constitution. Now we're going to talk about the amendments of the Bill of Rights. There are actually 27 amendments of the Bill of Rights, but we're only going to talk about the first 10. The First Amendment of the Bill of Rights is by far the most important amendment because it gives us our 5 basic rights, which are freedom of religion, speech, assembly, press, and petition. Freedom of religion is one of our first 5 basic rights. It basically says that Congress can't establish an official religion, so they can't force you to be a religion. And it separates the church from the state. And it talks about the Establishment Clause, which basically says that you can practice whatever religion that you want. Freedom of speech is the second of the 5 basic rights. It basically says that you can say whatever you want without being punished. There are limits to it, like slander, so you can't purposely lie about someone, and treason, so you can't give military secrets away to your enemies. Freedom of speech includes art, music, and clothing. Freedom of speech basically means freedom of expression. Freedom of press is the third of the 5 basic rights. It basically deals with any publication, books, newspapers, magazines, and TV and radio shows. It says that you can write whatever you want without punishment. There are limits to it. They're called libel, and it means that printing lies about someone is a serious crime. So basically, if you know that it's a lie and you print it still, you can get in big trouble. But if you tell someone that you didn't know it was a lie and you print it, you can't get in trouble because you didn't know it was a lie. Freedom of assembly is the fourth of the 5 basic rights. It says that you have the right to gather with groups or join an organization, so like chess club or glee club. These are covered under the freedom of assembly, so you can go to meetings, parades, political parties, political rallies, and labor unions. As long as they're peaceful, you can basically do whatever you want. Petition is the fifth of the 5 basic rights. It's basically a formal request or a written statement following signatures. So say you want to change something about the school lunch, you just write what you want to change, and then you get a bunch of people that agree with it to sign it, and you could bring it to the office and maybe they would talk about changing it. The Second Amendment basically says that we can have guns, and it guarantees the right to Americans to serve in a state militia and to bear arms, so have guns. As long as it's well regulated, we can serve in a state militia. So as long as you don't go off shooting someone, you're perfectly fine. The Third Amendment is probably the least important amendment to us today, just because it has nothing to do with us today. About 200 to 150 years ago, it probably would have helped, but right now it doesn't really do anything because it says that the government can't force soldiers to stay in your homes. So when there were soldiers over in the 13 colonies, they didn't have anywhere to stay, so the government forced them to stay in their homes, and basically it says that we can't do that anymore. The Fourth Amendment is basically called the Privacy Amendment because it says that the government can't go through your stuff without a good reason. It basically comes with the form of a search warrant, which is a legal document to search your belongings. So the government can't search your belongings without the actual search warrant and a good reason. The Fifth Amendment talks about the grand jury, jeopardy, and due process. It basically protects you if you were ever accused of a crime. If you're indicted, it means that you're formally accused by a group of citizens called the grand jury. They can't, double jeopardy is something that they can't do. So, and what that says is basically that if you are put on trial and they accuse you of being guilty the first time and then they later realize that you weren't guilty, they can't put you on trial again. And then due process of law, it basically is following the procedures established by the law and the Constitution. The Sixth Amendment deals with the Miranda rights. This is based off of a person, that's why it's called Miranda rights. It says that you must be told the exact nature of the crime that you are being accused of so that you know what you are being accused of. Because the reason it's called Miranda rights is because Miranda, who was the person that was accused, didn't know what his rights were to do with the Constitution when he got into trial. And then you have the right to a trial by jury and the right to a lawyer even if you can't afford one. And the trial must be speedy and public. The Seventh Amendment deals with the jury trial. It says that it guarantees the right to a jury trial in civil cases. And if it exceeds the amount of $20, you have the right to a jury trial. So if someone owes you more than $20, you can do a jury trial. And it usually has to do with lawsuits. The Eighth Amendment deals with criminal cases, death penalty, and bail. The purpose of bail is basically to make sure that someone comes back. So they make you pay money to get out of jail. So say that they make you pay $20,000 to get out of jail. Obviously, the person is going to want that back. So they'll come back to the trial and they'll get their money back in some cases just to make sure that they'll be at the trial. It also said that the government can't punish you too severely and fine you too excessively. Sometimes they won't even give people bail just because that the person knows that they're guilty. So even if it's a crazy amount of money, they'll pay it and they'll just run off because they know that they're guilty and they don't want to come back because they know they're either going to go to jail or prison. The Ninth Amendment talks about the enumeration of the Constitution. It basically talks about the clarifying of the people. So the rights that are in the Constitution aren't just spelled out for the people. So all the rights in the Constitution aren't just the rights of the people. People have other rights that aren't in the Constitution. The 10th Amendment deals with the powers not given to the United States by the Constitution. They're actually given to the state. So they can be taken away from the people that live within the state. So basically, marriage laws is one of them. So if the state doesn't want people to get married, the people within that state can't get married. That's just an example of one of them.